over the past 10, 12 years, I have been afforded the opportunity to observe the Holy See directly fulfilling its role in daily interaction with individual governments and with a variety of international organizations, especially now in Geneva. During the last 12 months or so, for example, I participated in the building up of the new Human Rights Council, which becomes the third pillar of the United Nations Organization: Security Council, ECOSOC, the Economic and Social Council, and the Human Rights Council. The Human Rights Council is based in Geneva, and it used to be once a year a session. Now it's almost every 2 or 3 weeks. We have 2 or 3 weeks of work on human rights. Then I happen to be a signer of the agreement between the Holy See and the Organization of African Unity, the African Union now, that allowed the Holy See to be an observer for the organization of all these 53 African countries, showing that there is an evolution. The Holy See continues to become involved in the development of world social and political life. And very recently, I was also involved in some ratification of military treaties or disarmament treaties. So one might easily speculate that the interplay among states and among international entities will intensify, and therefore conclude that everyone's participation in the management of international relations is a responsibility, it's a must. At a time when, in most countries, a plurality of cultures, religions, and lifestyles has come to coexist side by side, the Holy See can contribute to the governance of international relations by offering a specific ethical perspective. This perspective has the potential for a realistic impact on such issues as the relationships between rich and poor, developed and developing countries, and reconciliation, and the maintenance of peace, and on concerns related to disarmament. In one way or another, two types of intergovernmental organizations, international and regional, have requested the presence of the Holy See. Today, there are official representatives of the Holy See with 33 international intergovernmental organizations and bodies at the levels of ambassador, observer, delegate, special guest, or occasional observer. In some of these organizations, the Holy See enjoys full membership, as in the case of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the International Telecommunication Union, and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. While in most other organizations, the Holy See is an observer, for example, in the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, and the World Trade Organization and the United Nations Environment Program, based in Nairobi. There are 10 regional intergovernmental organizations in which the Holy See participates. The Holy See is accredited to the Arab League and is represented there by a delegate who is seated in Cairo. On the other hand, since 1973, the Holy See has been a member of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which has its headquarters in Vienna, and to which the Holy See first sent a permanent representative in 1994. These organizations span the world, and so on a formal or informal basis, observers of the Holy See are also geographically scattered at the Council of Europe in Strasbourg, the Organization of American States here in Washington, the African Asian Legal Consultative Committee in New Delhi, the African Union in Addis Ababa. Two observations are in order at this point. First, in all these organizations, observers of the Holy See are expected to follow the working process, especially when new norms are proposed that may become mandatory for the members of the organization. They also inform the Holy See about the various initiatives and activities within the organization with an eye on the impact that these may have on the educational, health, and other services the local churches conduct. And finally, they promote the participation of non-governmental organizations inspired by the social doctrine of the church. That's another role that the observers play. Because you know there are dozens of Catholic and non-governmental organizations that are lobbying in Geneva, in New York, in Vienna, to try to put across their own point of view, as thousands of other organizations are doing. And the observers of the Holy See are trying to encourage and support also these organizations. Now, this positive approach goes beyond an active participation in international organizations. The popes, as I mentioned before, are the first agents of their own diplomacy through their visits to governments and peoples of all backgrounds and faiths across the globe. A clear appreciation of it for international organization was expressed during the papal visits, for example, by Pope Benedict XVI to the United Nations, that he emphasized the will of the Catholic Church through the Holy See to support the building up of this international authority, of which he refers to which he refers to also in the latest encyclical, Veritas, Caritas in Veritate, where he calls for a global authority to help handle with some efficiency the problems of today's world that cannot be solved by one country alone.